Hey, Warrior Saints! Father Chris here, and welcome to today's live stream. We are late because of me. My apologies, but we love you, beautiful people. I want to thank all of you for being with us last week, and especially to thank Greg for leading our charge. He did a great job last week while I was away. And I was away in California with my wife and her family, and the reason I tell you that is that we went to be with family during the death of my father-in-law. And I say that because I saw in that woman, my wife, things that I could not fathom. Let me tell you what I mean. You got to forgive me and indulge as I brag a little bit, but like I'm overwhelmed. I said to people, they're like, "How was your wife?" I said, "Look, her father died. He lived a great life, long life, died in the most peaceful manner you could imagine. But of course, she's sad. It's her father. She's cried a little bit. She's grinding through it. She's been a rock for her mother and brother. And for me, I was like enamored with her. I'm not surprised. That's what I said. I'm not surprised to see her behave like this because I know who she is. She's amazing. And in some sense, I'm not even impressed because I expected nothing less. I mean, this is who she is. If you think about a big rock, my wife's picture pops up. And not dumb as a rock. Greg's laughing at me. A rock meaning strong, all right? You know what I'm saying, people, all right? She is a solid rock. She is brilliant, obviously, but she's solid when you see a rock. Yeah, I'm going to pay for that one. That was pure. Come on, people. I'm not surprised. I'm not impressed. The word I keep using is enamored because I see in this woman grace, strength, truth in the sense of real emotion, whatever was in her heart, love. I mean, I'm enamored. I don't have the words. And I shouldn't be surprised by that, and I'm not, because I expect nothing less from her. I shouldn't be impressed by that, and I'm not, because I expect and have seen in the last 20 plus years nothing different from her. I'm enamored, and I realized that I'm watching in life, in action, through this beautiful woman who is my bride. And obviously I'm biased and I love her more than anyone else, and excuse me, of course I'm biased, but I see in her happening action what God has revealed to us in Proverbs 31 verses 10 and following, often referred to as the good wife. And I thought, I'm back at it. I want to talk about Proverbs because wisdom, and I see it in the image and the metaphor of my bride. And like I say, you have to indulge me that moment to brag about her. It's not just about bragging about her to say, oh, look at how wonderful my Allison is. But it is to say that in her I see what's happening in the story, or at least the teachings of the good wife. So let's talk about Proverbs 31, verses 10 and following, a section that we call, often referred to in scriptural studies as the good wife. It is speaking about wisdom, Lady Wisdom, right? So wisdom being the content, the teaching, the idea of the book of Proverbs. So let me have a few brief moments just to talk about wisdom, set it up for us, and then we're going to talk about these verses that are just stunning. First, wisdom is a specific genre in literature of literature in Scripture. And what I mean by that is that there are many different types of writings. There are things like the Gospels. Some of them have narrative in them. There are things like epistles, right? St. Paul's letters, where it's a letter written with instruction. There are historical texts, and though they are not concerned with telling detailed history, they talk about historical events through the lens of a believer. And you see this kind of stuff in 1 and 2 Samuel, for example, where they talk about the life and stories of David. You also see apocalyptic literature that deals with the ends of time, like Daniel. You see this in Ezekiel 38 and 39, and of course the book of Revelation. There is another genre of literature in Scripture called wisdom literature, and it is about teaching the followers, the hearers, and the readers of Scripture to live a life of wisdom, that the foundation of our behavior, our life, our action should be based on the wisdom of God. Proverbs falls squarely within the genre of wisdom literature. In fact, it probably is the crown jewel of wisdom literature. It starts by talking about wisdom, and it bookends chapter 1 and 31 with Lady Wisdom speaking to us in chapter 31. Beautiful. I love it. You should be reading Proverbs every day. Most months have, well, half the months have 31 days. There's 31 chapters. Read one a day. And on some of those months where there's only 30 days, pick 2 and read 2 in one day. And if it's February, you'll figure it out, right? Read Proverbs, at least one chapter every day. It's beautiful stuff. Number 2, wisdom. What is wisdom? And you think about wisdom being an old man who has long gray hair and a long beard, and he, has spent many, many years studying and, to find wisdom. And that's, what's the word I'm looking for? Contrasted to a young, foolish child, right? That's why we make fun of sophomores in college, right? The word sophomore is a combination of 2 Greek words, Sophia and Morea, wise fool. That's what it literally means. Because the sophomore, I'm not a freshman anymore, I think I'm wise. You're still a fool. And part of that is due to age. And part of the wisdom that we attribute to old men is because they've experienced, right? Our older people, men and women, our grandparents, have lived. They've seen a lot more than we have. We may even be smarter intellectually than them, but we can never compete with experience and time. Wisdom is something that is never given, but earned. Which is a very quick note for all of us young people. Make sure you love and respect your elders. And that's why we respect them. Not because it's just appropriate and nice, though it is. It's because, they've seen what I haven't yet seen. Or have seen what I've seen multiple times and know how to deal with it better. Wisdom with the aged, respect that. Wisdom also, be very clear, it's an opposite. Wisdom in Scripture is the opposite of folly. Folly. So folly, in Greek, for example, we see this in Paul's letters. Folly is the word moria. Moria. And if you're careful, you can hear in that word moronic. That's where the English word moron comes from, right? So moria, which is moron, is folly. And it is directly opposed to wisdom. The point of folly is that it is that which tries, if we submit to folly, it is that which takes life, right? So a very silly but clear example is that if I go to the top of a 30-story building and jump off, it is foolishness. That's folly. I will not live past the 10 seconds it takes to fall to the bottom of the floor, right? Folly, doing foolish things lead to death. And by definition, doing things of wisdom are there to preserve life, right? So that's how wisdom works. In other words, it's very wise not to flirt on the edge of the building on the 30th floor, because if I slip, or a gust of wind, or some angry person pushes me, or I get stupid and want to see if I can fly, it's wise, just stay back a little bit, right? In case any of those things happen, it's wise to be away from the edge. This is how wisdom works. It is in opposition to folly, to foolishness. The two are literally black and white. They're opposed to one another. There's no gray between wisdom and folly in Scripture. That's how it works. Wisdom's main goal, wisdom's main function is the preservation of life, whereas folly is to take away life, right? So that's how that works. That's kind of like our brief intro setup. Now let's read, I could go on for hours about it, but let's read some of Proverbs 31, and I'm going to start with verse 10. And it begins as follows. A good wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts her, and he will have no lack of gain. And look, this is not a sexist conversation that, this is all about men and, let's find a good woman to take care of us and make things prosper. That's not really what Proverbs 31 is talking about. As I said, Lady Wisdom is the good wife that we see in verses 10 and following. But I think we can see it applying to our brides in the world. And ladies, for those of you who are married or someday will be married, it can apply to your husband also. So get that it's not a sexist statement. Who can find this good wife? All right, I don't want to be too deep on Meshal, right? No, you don't want to go, so. Proverbs are sayings. They're like nice little beautiful quips, the quotes that if you do a search on quotes on Google, quotes of leadership, you're going to find, this guy said and this gal said, da, 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 da. That's what Proverbs, that's how it functions. It's a bunch of quips. And a good wife, who can find? It's like he's telling you, Go find that good wife. I mean, look to find Lady Wisdom. Look to see in your bride, young men, as you are proposing or dating and hoping to propose to a lady, you make sure. It's not about being hot. I hope she's hot, but that's not what it's about. It's about finding that good wife, that one in whom your heart will trust, right? In whom your heart will trust. Jerry Maguire's a great story. If you haven't seen it recently, if you've never seen it, you should. If you haven't seen it recently, you should watch it again. I mean, the character Tom Cruise, as Jerry Maguire, is married to the beautiful Renee Zellweger, but it's kind of a marriage of convenience until he realizes at one moment, oh my gosh, I've had this success. I'm not going to ruin the story, but I've had this success, and it's incomplete because my heart longs and trusts in her, and I'm estranged from her. And he goes back to her, and they make up, and the movie. You should watch it, Jerry. It was a pretty good flick. There's a lot of chaos in it, but I mean that moment at the end when he realizes, I have a good wife, and my heart trusts and delights in her, and he lets nothing prevent him from reconciliation. This is the statement of verses 10 and 11. She does him good and no lack of harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. In this you see that by her being a partner, Lady Wisdom being a partner with the reader of Proverbs, and in relationships, in marriages, partnership, that it's not a system of, all right, look, let's talk about like this. Like, I'm a married man, an Arab man, and I have my woman, right? Like, it's not about that. She is my wife who carries my father's name, absolutely. But it is a relationship, a partnership, where all things that happen, we accomplish them together, whether I do the lion's share of the work or she does on whatever project, right? It's that it is not my success, it's our success. It's kind of like one of those things, now I'm not judging people who do differently, but it's like we don't have separate bank accounts, right? I mean, I don't have my account and she has her account. We have our bank account, right? Because we're in it together. Do you understand that? I'm not criticizing you if you do have separate accounts, to be fully disclosure. We have multiple accounts, of course, and some I manage and some she does. But the idea is that we have access to all of them together because it's our life. It's not my life. It's our life. And it's not her life. It's our life. And in the same way, he's saying, because there is this connection, and speaking about wisdom, because they are connected, she does him good and not harm all the days of his life. If he will follow in that and stick with that and be wise all the days of his life, he will find that she does him good. And she is like, verse 14, the ships of the merchant. She brings good food from afar, right? She's delivering always, constantly good and things for sustenance. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and tasks for her maidens. I saw that happen today at the crack of dawn as my girls are getting ready for school. In Arizona, we're back in school. It's all online, but we're back, the girls are Zooming or Skyping basically into school, into classes. And she was up early. As I got up, I'm always up relatively early, and I'm out there walking. Here she comes, kind of like in the zombie state because she's tired, but cooking breakfast for the girls. Like, these young ladies are 15 and 13, completely capable. They can make their own breakfast. But she brings food. She's feeding, constantly sustaining and bringing life to the house. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. I like this. She considers a field and buys it. It's to say that there is wisdom, obviously, in business dealings. In other words, what's the commodity that someone would want to have in the ancient world at the time Proverbs is written? Land. I mean, there are no skyscrapers. Land, right? There's no iPhones. Land. And she is considering it. This one's good. This one's not. Here's why. Here's not. Good price, negotiations. The idea is, like, I'm not telling you ladies to become businesswomen, though you may. It's to say that there is wisdom in the proper and the wise execution of the businesses, the finances of a household. We all know those funny but not really so funny stories of a guy who, that saying, like, you've heard this before. How do you know when a man is wealthy? When he earns more than his wife can spend, right? Like, you may have heard that. All right, it's funny. And, but like, we've all know those stories about those women who just, spend, and guys do it too. I got it. But, who spend more than the husband can make and all that kind of stuff. Where's the prudence and the wisdom, right? That's what Proverbs is calling us for. She girds her loins with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. Like, I love that. And in other words, she's relentless, constantly grinding and moving forwards towards the success of the household and the family and herself, making herself better. It's that there are no moments where, oh, let's binge on Friends, or let's binge on, old episodes of whatever TV show from Netflix, right? Like, it's a constant movement towards betterment, towards making ourselves better and wiser and stronger. And look, when I watch my wife do things like that, I'm inspired. I'm like, well, how am I sitting down now? Like, look at her. She's worked hard all day and she's still grinding. Get up and go. It's a beautiful statement. I'm going to fly through the rest of this and then we'll just have a quick couple of chats. She puts her hands to the distaff and her hands holds the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy, which, again, as you know, is the main thrust of Scripture, take care of the poor, and yet this wisdom, she does that. She's not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. Preparation, planning, right? She makes herself coverings. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Like, in other words, his reputation grows because of her, right? Like, in other words, say, oh, that's Sally's husband. You understand? Like, all right, so like, look at it like this. Father Chris, my wife is Allison. They don't look at her and say, oh, that's Father's wife. They look at me and they're like, that's Allison's husband, right? She brings my name glory because she's so fierce, right? So elegant, so graceful, so wise. She makes linen garments and sells them, delivers girdles to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing. She laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. I love it, right? She's clothed. Garments of strength and dignity are her clothing. And she doesn't eat the bread of idleness. In other words, it means the bread that she's eating, literally, is from the work of her labors. But it also means the bread of idleness, i.e. sitting around binging on Netflix episodes of Friends all the time. She's at it, moving, grinding, pushing forward. Even if that means simply pushing herself forward, grinding, learning, reading, studying, and praying, loving with her family, whatever, always moving forward. And it ends with these last 3 verses. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you have surpassed them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Love it. Give her of the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. I mean, wisdom is telling us that the focus and the fear of the Lord is always the reference point, that which we must be looking at. And a woman who praises and fears the Lord is blessed among all, right? It's beautiful stuff. It leads me to, again, I thank you for indulging me in looking at examining my own bride. But like I say, I've been enamored with her lately. It leads me to the point, like the practical applications I want to put before us. Like, one of the things that we suffer from in this country more than, it's tragic, is that the statistics are showing us that divorces are on the decline, which you would think is great. The problem is that people just aren't getting married anymore. And for those that do get married, 1 out of every 2, i.e. 50%, i.e. half of all marriages end in divorce. Part of that means you're just marrying the hot chick and you're not thinking about it, which Proverbs 31 warns us about early on. And the other part of it is that, are we looking at marriage as something that should be crucifixional? Are we sacrificing ourselves for this person or just expecting from the other person, right? Is everything a take or is everything a give? Proverbs 31 verses 10 through 31 are showing us about the good wife. And I don't know if you heard it as we read all those 21 verses. I don't know if you heard it or not, but the good wife is the one who is constantly seeking to give to the other, whether it be upbuilding her husband or her children or her family or her home or strength and dignity. Crucifixional life. Come on, man, that's what works. All the rest of this it don't work. You want to question me and tell me I'm wrong on that? Turn on YouTube. Turn on Facebook. Turn on Fox News. Turn on CNN. Go outside and just look at the world. You can see what take does. You can see where take leads us. But what about give? What about sacrifice for other? That's when it works, right? Like that's the business of it. That's how we are called. And so husbands, now I'm going to talk to the fellas. Ladies, it applies to you as well, but I'm going to talk to the fellas. Look, you better get it out of your mind, my wife. Yes, she's your wife. I introduce Allison sometimes as my wife. But that possessive mentality of my wife, who is there to serve my needs and to do the things that I need, son, it's time that mentality goes away. And replace it with a crucifixional mentality, where you say to yourself, how can I serve my wife? How can I sacrifice for my wife? Oh my God, she's totally a nag. How can I help? How can I forgive? How can I be patient? How can I listen? How can I shut my lips from talking while she's talking so I can listen? How can I be sacrificial of myself, i.e. crucifixional, for her? Oh, Lady Wisdom in Proverbs 31 is upbuilding the house. How can I upbuild my wife? Not how can I constantly take from my wife. You see it, it's a very different nuance there. I mean, it's not even a nuance, it's just clear. Sacrifice yourself for her, and all of a sudden, you're going to see things start to change. If you're having a rough time at home with your wife, or ladies with your husbands, yeah, it could be his fault and it could be her fault. But whichever person you are, you better assume that it's your fault. And you better assume to take responsibility and start being crucifixional for the other. You can see that God is telling us in Proverbs 31 that Lady Wisdom, who is always sacrificing for other to upbuild her home and not focus simply on herself, is the one who is worthy to be praised above all else. Let me read it to you again. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Take that, put it in your own life, and see what happens. Let me end with this. Look, try it. Every husband knows that wives can be annoying, and every wife knows that husbands can be annoying. Everyone knows that other people, whether the spouse we're married to or people we see on the streets we interact with in the grocery store, can be equally annoying. The challenge for us is to throw off the frustration that goes with it, to throw off the anger that comes with it, to throw off the judgmentalism that goes with it, and start practicing a crucifixional life. Taking responsibility to say, like, I try to do this. I'm not always good, and if my bride sees this episode, she's going to say I was wrong. But, like, I try to do this. That if we're fighting over something, or not fighting, arguing, whatever, I mean, it happens, right? All right, my first reaction is, she's so wrong. But I try to catch myself and say, all right, how can I take responsibility? How can I start from the position of it's my fault, and what can I fix? I try to start from the position of what is she needing? What expression is she giving to me that she is calling out that I can serve? And if you do that, and your spouse starts to pick up that same modus operandi and living a crucifixional life themselves, you will not have a good marriage. You'll have a great one, right? I mean, that's what it takes to make it work. So that 50% divorce rate can drop to zero or near it, right? I mean, and that's not a pipe dream. That is not something that, Father Chris you've got his head in the cloud. Like, look, the world of take, it's the proof's in the pudding, man, 50% divorce rate. Well, it ain't working. So if take doesn't work, maybe give does. And my point is, why don't we try that? I'm going to leave you for the weekend with that as an experiment. Go home with your husbands or wives, or if you're already home, start right this very second. Implement this into your life. Think about it all weekend long. How can I give? I don't want you to be unhealthy about it. That's not what we're saying. But to give and sacrifice yourself so that you might be the good wife or the good husband, lady wisdom or gentleman wisdom for that other person in your house. See what happens. If it doesn't work, message me and we'll talk about it. Maybe I'll make an addendum to it. I hope you guys have a great weekend. St. George will have liturgy and Orthros and liturgy on Sunday as usual. Next week, for the Way of the Warrior Saint, pay attention. We're launching something not good, but great. Leadership there's a void right now, and it's a crisis of leadership. We don't have it. And we're launching a new series called Crucifixional Leadership, which is going to help you become a good leader, a leader that Christ has called us to lead. Look, there's a void. We're going to step into it. I don't want my politicians to step into the void of leadership. And I don't want the teachers for my kids in their school to step into the void of leadership. I want you to do it, and I want to do it. We're going to step up to do that. We created a new series. It ain't good. It's great. It's called Crucifixional Leadership. It is coming starting this Monday. You need to subscribe. You need to be a member of the Way of the Warrior Saint. You need to be a Warrior Saint in order to watch all of this series. And it's going to be long. It's not going to be like 2 or 3 episodes. We put a lot of work into this. It's a lot of thought. There's a big plan. Join us at warriorsaints.org and subscribe. warriorsaints.org and subscribe to the Way of the Warrior Saint. First episode will launch on Monday afternoon or morning, Monday, regardless. Sign up. It is less than, it's $30 a month, man. Come on. It's $1 a day. Like your latte. I bought this at the store, $1.25. Come on, man. Come on. Do it now. Subscribe. Join us on the Way of the Warrior Saint. We're also offering a promo just for a little while longer. COVID 30, because we're in the midst of the COVID. Use it, 30% off, and that $1 a day becomes like 72 cents a day or whatever the math works out to. Unbelievable. Love you, beautiful people. Hope you have a great weekend. We will see you Sunday for liturgy, Orthros and liturgy at 9 and 10 a.m. respectively Pacific time. And on Monday again, we will teach some more. Until then, keep walking on the Way of the Warrior.